So maybe, I don't know, is it too clickbaity to describe you as an ex-porn star?
No, because there's no such thing as an ex-porn star. Just so you know, once you're a porn star, you're always, even though I haven't made a movie in probably 10 years, doesn't matter. I'm still a porn star to the world. So that's why I always tell everybody, if you want to get in porn, you better think about it. It'll be with you forever, forever.
Yeah, great. I mean, exactly. The stuff is literally out there forever for people to see. But you don't seem too bothered by that. I mean, right?
Me? No, I'm proud of my pornography. I know people don't like it and I don't really care. I didn't do it for those people. I did it to help people sort of understand our bodies, and, you know, it empowered me beyond belief. I will never speak badly about pornography.
Right. And it's also pretty hot, I gotta say.
Right on. And then there's that.
All right. So, Buck, hey.
We're like old friends now.
Right? Yeah.
We are.
So just for people on my channel to know that we've actually filmed, this is a follow-up conversation, if you will, to the one that we did for your channel, which was, you guys definitely should check out his channel. It's very different than maybe different, but we're all trying to do the same thing in different ways, I guess.
Which is good, because if we're all doing it the same way, it gets boring. I feel like these conversations are really important because it brings us back to conversation.
Right. I told you in our previous conversation that I've recently been, for some reason, the universe has introduced me to trans men, and I'm finding the whole idea so hot on so many levels, not just sexual. It's like blowing my mind.
That's awesome. That's beautiful, and that was really a lot of why I started my work so long ago, because I started becoming attracted to men, which is weird for me. I would never attracted to men before I transitioned. And so I said, there must be other trans men like me, and then there must be gay men who are attracted to guys like us. I saw it all, but nobody really talked about it, and people were embarrassed about it. And gay men especially were very embarrassed to be attracted to me, you know, and they would say it. I feel like, does that make me straight? I just thought that was so profound, that people's brains work this way, that they feel embarrassed to be attracted to a certain type of person.
Well, if I may, maybe embarrassed for some of them, but it's also, I would say, a little bit of a mind fuck, because it's like, you know, I took so long to come out and accept that I like men. Now I'm attracted to someone with a vagina. Like, what the hell does that even mean? It's more of like a confusion, I think, as well. Like, right?
Well, sure, because it's the vagina, right? There we go with that space. But I get it. I 100% get it. And some of the men that I had sex with,
like, what is that? Like,
So early on, when I did have sex, even for me for the first time with a man, and also for them, it was actually uncomfortable because we were trying to navigate and not understanding how to navigate. And so I had some horrible experiences and I had some amazing experiences. So all of us were growing and understanding this together. Some guys would just be like, gross. And I'm like, cool. I have no issues with that. I'm not your type of man. It's totally. So today, when we say this stuff, or if you aren't attracted to a trans person, you're transphobic, is so insane and so, on some level, kind of homophobic. It's like, people can't change what they're attracted to. That's not possible, ever.
Yeah. But I mean, but I have to say, what you're attracted to, for some of us, at least the ones who are willing to experiment, that can change over time.
Well, it's not that it's, I think, so for me, example, taking testosterone literally changed my sexuality on some level, but I was in tune to it and I was okay with it. I guess what I'm trying to say is that we need to let people just find their space without pushing them and saying, if you don't do this, you are this, right? That's like saying to a straight man, if you're not attracted to a man, then you're homophobic. But that's not true. So people's sexuality does, I think it can, if you're willing to do that. But that's a personal space that we have to give people, that personal space to figure it out on their own.
Right. And not actually be offended, like you said, if someone isn't attracted to you. I mean, that is crazy. Yeah.
I don't know what's happening with our community, friend, but we've gone off the deep end. This idea that we can force people to speak or believe, or it's just not part of the LGBT community I come from.
For those people who don't know, like, you occupy a very interesting space in the trans community.
Well, you know, yeah. So yeah, you know, I'm a transsexual man. I was born female. and I transitioned to live as a man 30 years ago. I am a biological female. I do not deny my biology. It's the reason I'm transsexual. So that's where I'm at, and that's why I get pushback from a newer transgender community that doesn't believe in biology, thinks you can just self-ID as trans, you don't need gender dysphoria, like things that do not even have anything to do with me. So to your listeners, yeah, I'm controversial on some level.
Yeah, it's interesting just hearing you describe it that way. I realized what's the connection between us because my channel and my drag name is called In Denial because I arrived at this because I wanted to face reality. And what you're saying is actually you're just asking people to face reality and not be in denial about what's going on. You know, you are a man. To me, you are completely a man. But like you're acknowledging that there is a biological reality, right? Is that fair to say? Yeah.
Yeah, but because to me, I have no reason to lie to you, and I have no reason to trick you. I'm not like you. I'm not a biological man. I'm a transsexual man, and I'm proud of that. I'm proud of the fact that I got myself a diagnosis. I'm proud of the fact that I cleaned myself up. I'm proud of the fact that I stayed alive. I'm proud of the fact that I get to be this man in the world and really educate people in a healthy way, in a loving way. I don't expect everybody to agree with me. That's what I always say. You don't have to agree with my sex change, but some respect is due to anybody who chooses to stay alive. And I chose to stay alive. And the only reason I am alive is because of my sex change. There's just should never be an argument about that.
How long ago was your transition like?
Yeah, 30 years ago. I'm 60 years old now, and I transitioned at the age of 30. But I was in a lot of therapy prior to that. I was in probably 10 years of therapy.
Prior?
Not a
Oh wow.
Yeah, 10 years of all, because I didn't know. I had no idea. I was just a butch lesbian, but I didn't feel like it was my space. It's hard to sort of say it unless you have gender dysphoria. But, back in the day, we didn't have social media or any of this. And I got beat up by people and all of that, and people didn't get it, and people thought I was weird, and, and all of the same things that happen to the youth today, but they can't seem to handle it. They hate it when people misgender them. They spiral out, and it's become violence. Words are violence. I mean, it's just absurd.
Yeah, people are. Yeah, I mean the snowflake. But yeah,
bad behavior.
But it's like you said, it's a young people's game. This being offended thing, and I wonder because you have a son, right?
Yeah, I have a 10-year-old son. Yeah.
And how do you I don't know, raise him to be have thicker skin, I guess, maybe?
Well, that's a great question. So how I do that is I push back on him a lot. And also I'm very honest with him. It's why I get very mad at we have these things in the United States where they're implementing them in the school system. They're calling them safe space for young kids so that they can say things that they don't say to their parents, and you don't have to tell their parents. I'm like, that's overriding my duties as a parent, and I teach my child not to lie to me. And if they have a problem, they can speak to me. So, and also I'm a different kind of, look at me, and also my partner, we're in the art scene, and, we're in the filmmaking scene, and we're kind of like in this whole sort of alternative lifestyle scene. So he doesn't have normal parents.
Yeah. And so your partner is a woman, right?
Mm-hmm.
So would you then call yourself bisexual? Is that like...
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm bisexual, and so is she. We're both bisexual, and so that's why it works out really well. And
because you told me in our previous conversation that your attraction to men is purely sexual. Is that correct? Or
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Was
Yeah,
it?
so that was the thing for me. Like I was like, I want to try to have a relationship with a man. Nope, didn't work. I don't connect emotionally. And so I really realized, like, that's why it's so important for me to really sort of embrace my past life as a female, because I do think you never lose it unless you cut it out. And I don't want to lose it. I think it's a part of me that was there for 30 years. And, once I learned that I can embrace that female side of me, it changed a lot for me. And so, but my point being is, I think my connection to women is emotional, and my connection to men is sexual, purely raw, piggy, all over the place, sexual with men. And not to say I can't do that with women, but it just has a different sort of experience for me. Both of them are just different.
Great. Well, speaking of the piggy sex, actually, we have a very interesting connection. I don't know, we didn't even talk about it in our previous interview. Maybe off the air we spoke about it. You used to perform in Amsterdam. and you performed in a place called Cockring.
That's right.
And that was, and you said it was around the year 2007, 2008, right?
Yep. Yep.
Yeah, because that was the time I first discovered Amsterdam as a tourist before living here, and Cockring was my favorite place. And I was a little too high to remember a lot of things, but I was having
Weren't
a
we
blast.
all?
Yeah.
So I was the first, really and only trans man to ever perform in male spaces back in the day. I started getting asked to speak at all. I mean, to perform, the Black Party. I would go to Amsterdam and, what is it, Wasteland. So anyway, I did the cock ring, and the dudes were like, they had never seen anything like me. They were rushing the stage and like, what? Their minds could not even. And so I don't know if you remember, there was a porn star called Mustafar. I can't remember his last name, but his penis was literally this big, like, because he did injections. It was so bizarre. It was like a loaf of bread. And I was like, what? That is going nowhere near me. I don't care what you say. That was my performance with him. It was so insane.
Oh, hold on. So the performance was an actual live sex
Yep,
fucking.
a live sex show. So I would do all live sex shows constantly all over Europe. And I was blowing people's minds. It was amazing.
Yeah, well, I mean, because you're butch, you present very masculine, so I think that's where people are like, huh? What is happening? But yeah.
They were like spinning out. Like, some people hated it. They were like, this is disgusting, of course, but I would say the majority. And at that time in 2007, no one had ever seen a man like me. They were more intrigued than they were hateful, right? Hustler Ball. I did all of the gay men scene totally. And like, I just blew people's minds. It's very powerful.
Do you still have, do you still do things like that, or are you not?
Well, it's funny. I just recently got asked to do another show, but I'm very picky now because I don't have to, and it's a lot of work, and I've done it. So I'm the guy who's like that. I've done it. I want to do something else. You know what I mean? Let the younger, and I also would love to see more young trans guys get into the scene. So I kind of feel like I want to move over, and that's what I did in porn too, because I just kept winning everything. And I'm like, I'm very grateful. Don't get me wrong, for all the awards and everything that I have been given, but I do believe there's a time when you have to step down from that and give the opportunity.
Great. What kind of awards were you winning? Like, what was your category? Because you're hard to define, right?
That's right. So they did have the transsexual category, but it was mostly transsexual women, right? And so I was winning all of those awards, but they started to create a trans man category because of me. And so they did start to do that. But I was winning because I was the only one. So I'm like, no, this can't. And also then more guys started getting in it, but I kept winning even over those guys. And so it just seemed unfair. And I don't know, it's about opportunity. I don't need 500 awards. I'm good.
And where in those porn days were you just were you like bottoming, or did you also talk?
Well, that's a great question. So right. So here comes that idea of bottoming and topping, and that was one of the really big messages of my work, was to say I am a total top. I am 100% in that space. I have bottomed, but it's not my space. So because I get penetrated, some people, especially in the gay men scene, they think that's bottoming. But I really tried to redefine that. And I said, no. I am actually having you service me. I'm a top. You are servicing me. So you're not going to penetrate me without my say so. So I'm actually in charge. And I'm not topping from the bottom. I'm literally using you in a means and a way to sort of make myself happy. So that's service. For me, that's servicing. And so I tried to show people that just because you get penetrated does not make you a bottom. You can be a top and be penetrated.
Yeah, because you totally give off the top energy. Like, yeah. So
right on.
Yeah, it's I get that. It's so funny. I started feeling like a top or a man or whatever you want to call it when I started doing drag. So there are so many layers. Like when I started to dress like a woman, I'm like, I actually like myself as a man, like even in bed and sexually. And I started to watch straight porn at that moment. And it was like, that was before I realized I'm attracted to trans men. I was like, why am I enjoying watching a dick go into a vagina? Like, what the hell? Where's that? Where's that coming from? And then it's just started evolving. And then, yeah,
See
it's
how
crazy.
that happens? That's really why I don't like these labels and these spaces and that are you this, are you that? And today we're so labeled out. I can't even believe the amount of labels we've created and all these neo pronouns and that ways of being and blah 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 and you
And
can't
the
be.
irony is that it's self-inflicted. Like we're doing it.
Also,
Other people.
Also, they keep saying bisexuality is transphobic. I'm like, oh my God, what isn't transphobic? I mean, because you're acknowledging biological sex. I'm like, yeah, that's right. Biological sex. It's called same sex attraction for a reason. But you see, they're trying to dismantle this idea that biological sex is real so that they can just open up this whole thing to say that, me as a trans man, I'm really a man. And no, I'm not. I'm not really a man. I'm an actually transsexual man, which is different. And it's important for us to acknowledge that because it really does play into my sexuality. It plays into my way of being, walking the world. And so I think when you start to sort of try to dismantle certain things that are very important, same-sex attraction is important, right? So biology creates that, and it's important.
Yeah, it's interesting, and I mean, I until I met like trans men, I realized okay, maybe 'cause I always thought if I had started a family, I would adopt, but I would actually like to have my own biological child with a trans man. That would be amazing. But how? Because you said the last time we spoke that that's not your space, but that some trans men are open to getting pregnant. How do you feel about that? Is that like something new, or is it like
Oh no. Oh no, it's been around forever, dude. When I first transitioned, there were dudes, within that first 5 years who were actually getting pregnant. I have like 4 friends of mine who got pregnant and have babies, and that's their space. I have no issue with that. What I have an issue with is changing the language around it or saying, trans men get pregnant. No, they don't. Not all trans men do. Don't lump me into that space. That gives me dysphoria, actually. So I think also when they start changing these languages to say people get pregnant, actually people don't get pregnant. Biological women get pregnant and trans men because we are biological females. Stop trying to, make the language so confusing. It's really a very female thing. You have to have a uterus and to get pregnant and have a baby, and that's a biological female space. So, and also pregnancy is really to me, a female space. So it would just totally make me feel uncomfortable and weird. But like I said, if you want to do that, my friend, it's your body and you're an adult. I'm all cool with adults doing whatever they need to do with their bodies. That I have no say so in that.
right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Totally.
I don't see the problem with it. I mean, we're adults. Here's, my concern and what I really speak about is children because I see something there that I don't like.
Maybe some of the my subscribers don't really know what when you said like what bothers you is the topic about children. Can you maybe elaborate a little bit on that? Like what?
Yeah, yeah. They might not know because again, it's very insular, right?
Right.
The fight that's going on, unless you're connected to the transgender sort of community or stuff, even though I don't know how you couldn't know because it's literally on every news station. For me, I don't necessarily believe labeling a child because the child says, I feel like a boy or I feel like a girl is trans. I believe that child has dysphoria, possibly they're just a normal little kid who wants to look like a boy or a girl. I mean, there's so many variables there. We're only immediately pinpointing a child if they say, Mommy, I'm a girl, or Mommy, we immediately like just label that kid trans. And now they're doing a thing called puberty blocking. And so what they're saying is that if they block, which means it's a medicine called Lupron that they give this child in a pill or an injection, and that literally stops puberty, which every human being on the face of this planet goes through puberty. And so their logic is if we stop the puberty, we stop the growth of female or male characteristics of this child. So later on, we can start giving them cross-sex hormones. For example, a young boy who feels like he wants to be a girl, at 10 years old, they give you the puberty blocker. It stops the puberty. You don't, get masculine characteristics. But one of the things that happens here is your genitals don't grow, right? It literally stops puberty, which is brain functioning, all kinds of bone growth. And the fact that you would literally do that to a child because you think they are trans. You don't know for a fact that these kids are trans because they're not even going through mental health care. Anyway, my long story is that I'm against that. I'm against medicalizing children. I'm totally 100% against it because the statistics show many of these kids grow out of it.
Exactly, and when you're a child, there's so much that you want to be. I don't know. You think you're a mermaid one day, or like I don't know. It's like you think so many things, and they don't have to be so constant, right?
My God, anyone, I'm around children, you know that. I tell you that all the time. It doesn't make me the end all be all, but I'm also a transsexual who dealt with all my puberty and all my stuff and transitioned at the age of 30. A 10-year-old child cannot transition. There might be one in 100,000 of those kids who might need that space, but they're acting like every single child who is maybe a little bit saying this or saying that is trans immediately. That's actually really sick because this kid could be gay maybe, or this kid could just be normal and wanting to wear, the point for me is this. We are actually going backwards because this type of medicine is instilling gender stereotypes, which is what we need to get rid of. Boys can't wear dresses, girls can't wear pants. Bullshit. Of course they can. So instead of just letting the little boy wear a dress and be a little boy, we're like saying he's trans all of a sudden, right? So that's the problem I have.
Yeah, yeah, that's such a, as Oprah would call it, such an aha moment, what you just said, because in a way it's doing the opposite. It's actually not giving freedom for people to be like, yeah, I'm still a boy and I want to put on a dress. I mean, yeah, I don't have to transition, you know what I mean? Like,
That's right. That's
yeah,
why I'm telling you there's something fishy going on. Because since when don't you let a little girl be a tomboy? Most of them grow out of it and become, whatever. And, when I was growing up, I was a tomboy, but I was the one out of the 10 tomboys who transitioned. The 9 other girls that were like me have gone on to live great lives and be wives and husband, and and have kids and be normal. And they just desisted out of it, which is my point.
yeah, it's just literally playing. Yeah, like kids are playing. Speaking of which, today I was thinking to like rock a beard when I came on with you. I just bought these different beards for. I
It's
thought
so awesome, dude. You look you look like an intellectual.
I wore that for the award ceremony a couple of nights ago, and I thought but this gives me too much Muslim brotherhood. So I was like, maybe not. Since we're gonna be talking about
Oh no,
defining.
you're totally right. You're totally no, but also I want to tell you, your videos are so good. Wow, you're very talented. They are so top notch. Really great production. Like your editing, all of it. They're beautiful.
Well, I was actually a filmmaker before doing drag. I used to make documentaries and living completely different life. I was behind the scenes kind of a person, and then during Corona, I was like, okay, we're doing drag, and enough with the games.
No, you can see it. Well, my partner's also a documentary filmmaker, so I know that's a lot of work, but that's my favorite genre of film, by the way. So I think, well, I can see it. I can see your total, it's so clean. All of your stuff is so great.
Yeah, well, thank you so much. Yeah.
So that's the great thing I think is, I'm all about experimenting and exploring, and especially with sex. I think people are very scared to explore new things, and or they feel like because we give so much shame. There's so much shame around fetishes or whatever that even means. Or everyone's sexuality is so all over, but we're not encouraging. And so that was one of the things I really love about my porn or in being in the sexual space, encouraging trying things that you've thought about but maybe you thought were weird, or like I think that was really the beauty of having these experiences with these men, was that I got to experience and do things that both of us had never really experienced before, which was so amazing and awesome.
Great. And you just said fetishes, and there's this theory out there, and I was listening to a couple of interviews about sex workers because I'm about to do a lip sync project about sex workers, so I've kind of like
Right.
delving into that world. But there's a fetish sex worker, and she said fetishes or kinks are actually your brain's way of rationalizing something traumatic in your childhood and turning it into something pleasurable. Do you think that's too? Is that and like take away the pain? And is that too? Yeah, you're laughing. What do you think?
because because everyone always has to have this idea of figuring out what is a fetish, right? As if fetishes are bad. So I don't necessarily agree with that. I don't. And you can't lay that down as a blanket sort of statement because that's, I don't necessarily think that that is true. It could be true for some people, but maybe it's not true for me, right? Whatever my fetishes are. But one of the things that happened to me when I started my work, and still today, is that people in the trans community say that I've made trans men fetishized. I'm like, first off, let me say something. Fetishizing is not bad. There's nothing wrong with fetish. It's actually positive. Fetishizing is positive. It's not negative. So I said, that's great with me. I'll be fetishized. I love it. I think it's hot and awesome. And so I want to destigmatize this fetish bullshit. Or, oh, because I'm in that world. And so, people fetishize my boots. They fetishize me smoking cigars. They fetishize me with my leather pants on. You know what I mean? And that's an awesome, fun space to be in. So this negative idea of fetishizing has to go. And trans men are not being fetishized, and even if they are, who cares? It's a means in a way that creates a sexual experience for people.
Yeah, I love it because it's almost you're taking the power back. That's how I feel about when people say, "What about?" Because I'm an Arab guy. Normally, without this wig, I even look more Arab when I have a thicker beard. And some European guys here like find that very hot. I'm like, yeah. So some people tell me, "Oh, you're being objectified?" I'm like, yeah. So and.
That's a compliment. That is an actual compliment. And yeah, I think Middle Eastern dudes are beautiful, handsome, very masculine. So I can see that, how people would just be like that to you. Totally.
Sex is a lot about role playing and playing a character and feeling the fantasy and like. So if you're part of the game, you're in on it too. So what? Yeah, objectify.
I'm actually creating that, right? So I know that I'm being sexual or sexy or whatever you want. I know I'm actually trying to get you to look at me as a sex way. So I'm actually 100% at fault for that. But I want that. So there's this idea, this is the problem, I keep going back to community, right? Any community. All of a sudden we all have to be alike and we all have to think alike and that's bullshit behavior. That's not true. You're going to tell me every Muslim is the same? No, they're not. Are you going to tell me that every gay woman? No, they're not. Or gay man. There's even subsets of gay men, like bears, right? Leather, like whatever, surfer dudes. I don't fucking know, but it's ridiculous behavior. Our community has lost their minds.
Are you in a polyamorous or open relationship, or are you just monogamous, or how?
No. We're open with each other. So for example, like I don't go off and she doesn't go off because eventually that can cause problems. I've seen it happen. So we're open to all kinds of fun stuff, but most together. I think it's healthy to have open relationships. I do, but I don't think it's for everyone. Not everyone can do it because it creates jealousy and it creates all kinds of things that
and
human
like some people do it differently than you guys. They would actually feel more comfortable in going off separately, doing their thing with different people, then coming back. Whereas you guys want to do it with. So there's probably a million ways of doing it, right?
Oh my God, that's right. It's about you. So that's what I always tell people. It has to be about you two as a partnership. That's the most important thing. Whatever else happens out there, that's just that. But if you two are not the most important, it'll never work out. So that's how I know my friends who have had, open relationships for 30 years is because they're the number one. They make sure that they're taken care of. And when you bring somebody in to whatever, that's just a toy. You're bringing that person in as a toy, and you can't lose sight of that because that's where the problems. Like, what if someone starts to have an affair with the person that's why you don't have sex with the same person over and over. I think it's better if you just keep it very.
And also, if an affair were to happen, probably the foundation between the couple wasn't that strong, right? Like.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
You can't read.
That's exactly right.
Outside person. It's interesting. Sometimes, whenever I've had a threesome with a couple, you can immediately tell the energy if they're good together, or if one of them is being left out or feeling weird.
Yep.
Yeah.
See what I mean? It's an actual thing. I've experienced it before too. It's a total turnoff. 100%, because those people don't have their shit together, right? So now it's a complete turnoff because you can feel the energy from the other. Sex is energy. Oh. That's what people also forget. It is actual. I don't care if it's just sex and it's no emotion. It's still energy, yeah. And so what you're putting into this really is a very important thing. And if the other person isn't giving you that energy back, I'm not into it then. I actually will shut it down because I feel like I'm the one putting the most of the energy into it, and then I'm not getting anything back. That's just not fun, and it should be a fun kind of space, and it should be flowing like that.
And when, well, speaking of like energy and sex, like when you were doing a porn, was it because obviously a porn actor is someone who does it very often? Like, were you ever like, did you have days where you were just like, oh fuck, I've got to do this, or were you always turned on, or how was it for you? Or
That's an excellent question. I'll tell you what, I was very, very, very strict on the energy. And because it was my own production company, so, and also you got to remember, this was so new that it was so hard for me to find co-stars or people that wanted to shoot film with me because they were like, ew, or no, like it'll ruin my career or blah. Like I was so hard. So I would have to like go find people on the internet and like who've never done it before. But my point was going to be that if I don't have good energy with you, and I could feel it, it's not going to happen. I would never shoot. I would be like, nope, this isn't going to happen. So it was always about the energy because I always could see that on video. I could see if the people were having sex and it was just going through the motions, like, oh, this is so boring. Okay. Or they're actually having sex. And if you look at any of my movies, you can see I'm actually having sex there. It was never...
I've seen your movies. I've watched them very closely. Yes.
You're inspecting my movies,
yeah.
But you understand what I mean. That's why I didn't release 500 movies. I released, maybe one or two movies a year. I have a very small showcase, but I did that on purpose so that it wasn't just, I didn't become a robot, right? Here I am again. It gets just like, that's just lame. I don't need 500 movies. I want 12 movies that are super awesome and hot and will last a lifetime.
Exactly. But that's a kind of a privileged position, but you created that privilege in a way for yourself. You were smart enough to be like, yes, I'm doing it on my terms, right?
Yeah, thank you. I was actually in a really great position to do that and create my own product. And I own all my own movies. No studio owns it. I'm in a very, very privileged space. I got very lucky that I understood to create my own business, right? And that was 20 years ago. I understood to create and own my own content before many people in porn. Most people were just shooting for studios, but I created my own studio.
Right. And it makes sense kind of with what you're doing now, even though it's not porn, but you're still in a different way, but still doing the same thing. You're thinking for yourself. You have your own space, right? Like you're doing it your way. And I think that's what, for me, like drew me to you, is that you really are your own person. And
yeah, that's why we connected. That's why we're friends. And I see your work does that because it is so important. It's really great because you can talk about things in your drag. And I think on some level it can humorize it, but it can also be so profound. I'm watching your videos. It's very profound. And you're able to talk in a way that if you were just you right now, it wouldn't come off the same way.
Exactly. It's almost you wear the mask to become more authentic. That's how I see it.
No, actually, that's brilliant. That actually, this is a mask on some level. People, I don't care. I'm very honest. This is a costume. This is a costume I have to wear in order to walk the world without hating myself and without feeling as if I'm lesser than or I want to kill myself. Without this costume, I would want to kill myself. So, some people get hurt by me saying that, but I don't give a shit because they're not understanding this is my story. I'm not saying that about anybody else, but for me, I realized that I had to create this costume in order to be this man who is very successful, loved and have such an amazing, beautiful life. I have nothing to complain about. And that's all anybody should ever hear from a transsexual person. Are you okay? Did it change your life for the better? Are you successful in moving forward in the world? And that's what trans does. That's the whole point of transitioning, is to be a happy, successful person.
Great. Wow, what a beautiful note to end it on.
I love you, my friend. I'm so glad that we became.
Yeah, and I'm going to put all your stuff in the description, and I'm going to put this video out very soon, probably already this weekend, and I'll